I begin today by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is recorded today. Also pay respects to the elders past and present, and extend that respect to any other Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who may be listening today. This is Melanated in Melbourne, a podcast designed to give an insightful look into the Australian lifestyle from the lens of two Black American besties. And welcome back to Melanated in Melbourne. My name is Ri'chard.
I'm Nicole.
And we are here once again just to give you the highs and lows, the ins and outs of being Black in Melbourne and Australia as a greater whole.
Correct. A greater whole.
A greater whole. Like, again, we said it last time, there's no children, please.
No children.
We want to make sure there's no children involved
Please don't.
in any of this because gross. I mean, the children... I mean, yes, kids are lovely for people who decide to have
Correct.
them, and I love that for them.
Totally.
I just like sleeping and having money. But anyway.
Agreed. That is your lifestyle.
It's like, do not impose your lifestyle upon me.
More power to you.
So we actually have a special guest with us today.
We do, and I'm so happy about this because you heard us talking about her in the last episode, and I'm so grateful that we were able to get her to call in to have a few discussions with her and get her perspective on living in Melbourne. Ladies and gentlemen, our dear friend, Kristin.
Hello, guys. How's it going?
Hey, girl. Hey, how's it going with you?
Hey. It's going well. It's going well.
Well, we're so
Excited
excited
to be here.
Oh, well, we're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
You know, when
Happy to do it.
We were talking about having guests. There was no one we wanted more than the person that is actually the reason we know each other.
Quite literally the Elmer's glue of our group.
So
I love that.
You are.
And so obviously you're not in Melbourne at the moment, so we don't want to take up too much of your time because I'm sure it's
Yes.
actually nighttime for you. But if you want to just give us a general rundown of how you ended up in Australia and just kind of go from there, because we gave our origin stories in the introduction episode. But as a guest, we want the people to know who you are before we get into it. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, like you guys have said, I'm Kristin. I originally went out to Melbourne in early 2016. I had this really shit job in Washington, D.C. Three things aligned. I was single, my job sucked, and my lease was up in my apartment. And I was just kind of like, I want to just go back overseas. I'd lived overseas previously, and I was like, I just want to leave the U.S.
That's right.
And yeah, but I unfortunately had only two options to go. It was either Australia or New Zealand with the working holiday visa. So I had met a couple people who had done Australia before. So they were like, you should go to Australia first because they pay a little bit better. And then like, if you like it, you can go to New Zealand afterward. And I went at the time when it was only like a 1-year visa for Americans to go to Australia and New Zealand. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up there. I was between Melbourne and Sydney. And from what I've heard was Sydney has better beaches, but Melbourne has a culture. So I chose this culture.
Know that.
Yes, you should,
that's
absolutely.
right.
Yeah. I was very happy with that decision, actually.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really great. So when you came here, you were entered in on the work holiday visa here?
Yeah. So it was like the 1-year work holiday visa in 2016.
Well, I guess because I met you in like 2020. How did you go from working holiday visa to stretch it so far?
Oh, yeah, I stretched. I was like that person that had like all the visas. So I started working holiday visa because Americans have the 1 year, like I said. And then within my first year, they actually extended Americans to get the second working holiday visa with either 3 months of farm work or agricultural work or hospitality in the north.
Farm work.
Did you do the farm work?
No, I couldn't because my visa ended in like the early February, but they only approved the American side, I think like late November. So I never had the 3 months to do that kind of work. I even called immigration and I was like, hey, immigration. I was like, I will start farm work today. They said no. They were like, you don't have the 3 months. And I was like, please.
Oh, you were really going to volunteer. Okay, for our listeners, just to give them more context on the farm work. So, like, one of the stipulations with the work holiday visa is that you can stay here and work for a little bit of time, but then in order to renew it, I think it is, in order to renew it, you have to participate in farm work in, like, a rural area of Australia, and that could entail picking strawberries.
Bananas.
Bananas. You can go to vineyard though. There's a vineyard.
Oh,
there's vineyards. But
okay, that does
I have
sound
friends
fancy.
whose hands look like the claw from like Scary Movie.
Oh my God!
There's thorns. There's like you're volunteering for slavery, and that's why I did not do it.
But I was about it. I was about that life to stay.
Go
So
off. Oh my God.
So they told me no. And I was like, but I still really want to stay in Australia. I was committed to Australia. Like, I was like, I don't know if I was in New Zealand. Like, my life here is great. And I was talking to my mom, and I reached out to this, like, random course to do, like, 'cause a lot of people do this, but, like, go to this random course. I take this course, but I can still work part-time and get, like, this random, I think, like, a business course or whatever. Like, it wasn't even, like, a full degree. It was just, like, it was, like, super random. And my mom was just kind of like, Kristin, like, why would you pay for this course? Like, why wouldn't you just do, like, an actual degree that you can use later? And so I was like, oh, Mom, Mom's always right. So I was like, that's actually a really good decision. I was looking at doing my master's anyway, back in D.C. And so I ended up getting a student visa to do my master's in, like, at the University of Melbourne. And it actually cost less than what it would have cost to do it in D.C. And I was like, This is a half-price master's. So, like, it was kind of a win-win where I got my master's for half the price of what I would have got my master's in a school in D.C.
Yo, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But it's not the first time.
But mother's advice,
Listen, she be knowing. Shout out to mom.
Shout out to moms. Every episode, we
shout out to moms. Every episode, we're going to shout out to moms.
Every episode, clap, snaps, everything to mothers because they know. Listen to your mom.
That's
and then
everything.
Yeah, and after you finish a degree in Australia gives you a 2-year visa to 2, I think, to 5 years, depending on where you're going or where you went, what you studied, but like at least a 2-year visa to work because they're like, you spent this money here in Australia, we'll give you 2 more years to work here. So I got that. I was on that when the pandemic hit. So my last visa was the COVID visa. Because they kind of wanted people to stay and work.
Oh my gosh, COVID visas. Wow.
I forgot.
Yeah, there was a COVID visa. So I was 4 visas, nearly 7 years in Australia.
Wow, no way.
Yeah, that's a incredible
and
story.
I would have stayed. I just found out recently that like the COVID visa's still alive and I could have just taken it instead of leaving.
Oh my gosh. They really want people to stay here.
Yeah, especially because they closed the borders on everyone around the time that the pandemic hit. They were like, if you can't stay, there's the door. There's the door, bitch.
You need to leave.
And they realized about a year into it, it's like, oh shit, everyone's gone. Who's going to do the jobs that we don't want to do?
No,
correct.
It's because the prime minister said, if you can't afford to live here, get the F out.
Damn.
And people left.
I know, like that's.
He said that.
If you ain't got no money, take your broke ass home.
But then they realized they had no one to work on their farm.
Yeah, man. Wow.
And so they panicked and the COVID visa came out because the people who stayed like, oh, let me just try. They started to run out of money. They started to run out. Their visa started to end, and like, oh shit, we are losing people. So then the COVID visa came up. I have friends today who are still on the COVID visa. Like someone just got theirs approved, and like yes, the borders are open again, but it's still very much. It hasn't really jumped back since they closed the borders, and anyone who would have came in during that time period struggled immensely. And Kristin, you are living proof of that as well, having gone through bounce from visa to visa.
And I will say a negative about this is that like I was visa to visa, but for me it was also kind of hard to be visa to visa because like I found my tribe there, I love my life there, but when I got this job opportunity, I had to weigh the pros and cons of like, okay, like because my visa is supposed to end like this month actually, but it's just like if there was no other visa option, I would have had to leave. So my options were like, all right, take this job that like provides all the security or risk it to stay in Australia. And then like what happens come now, they're like, oh, sorry, no visa options. And then I just have to like take me and my savings and spend all my savings to move back to the US or wherever else I want to go. So like that was the issue. Like I think personally, like I've just started this new job. I'm enjoying it. But I think if I had visa security in Australia, I would have stayed.
For sure. Yeah, it's like the uncertainty is like hard. It was really hard to navigate.
And I had like a little existential crisis in April because I think they let you apply 3 months before the visa ends. And April came and I was like, the visa's still available. I could have stayed. But it's just I didn't know that because obviously like it's 50-50. The visa could have been available, but also the other chance was they could have stopped it. Like they could stop the COVID visa any day. Like they created the COVID visa during COVID. And if tomorrow they say no more COVID visas, everyone has to go or get a new visa. And like I was out of the visa option.
Absolutely.
Unless I like trick some guy into marrying me.
Which for our listeners, that actually is not a way that works. being married does not help you stay.
Oh.
It really doesn't. I'm just joking.
Oh,
no, that's I just don't want people coming back trying to fact check us. And I'm like, just to be clear, you can't just marry somebody. Like, it'll look good.
Some guy just stayed with me for a year. Like,
but yeah, like we have our own visa stories as well. We can go into that, but because your time is limited, we don't want to do that and take too much time. So if you want to,
yeah. Well, thank you for explaining that, because it's like I didn't even realize like visas were a thing until moving here, which I guess is like, that's the whole process of being an immigrant and whatnot. So now that we got the
funny enough, that's my whole job now, because I am now the one issuing visas to people.
Oh my gosh, that's kind of cute. I love that. I feel like you're like, I don't know, a fairy godmother, like just granting people, like, you can stay and you can stay.
You get a visa. You get.
But I do gotta tell some people. I'm trying to be that person, but I do gotta say no to some people, and it breaks my heart.
Oh, I bet. I totally understand that. Now that we've gotten through like the paperwork and the formality kind of way, we're going to talk about the culture and how you found things here in Melbourne, like making friends, meeting people, because you're pretty outgoing, because I told the story last time on the podcast of how we met, but I would love to know from your perspective, how did you find it meeting people here and integrating here?
Okay, so I feel like there's like multiple, I guess I'm going to say two kind of situations that I had in Australia. So my first couple years there, I did make some really, really good friends. But I think for me, a lot of my friends were also other expats. So I met a couple other Americans, a lot of British, a lot of Irish, a lot of Canadians, people also traveling there and doing the working holiday visa and not like fully living there long term. And so I felt like year one and year two, it was a lot of like, we become great friends. And then also it's our goodbye parties.
Can relate.
And so the last, I think maybe 3-4 years in there, I was like, you know what? I need to meet people who are going to stay here with me for the long haul. And I want to meet Australians, and I want to meet also other people who are just like permanently living in Australia. So I think I just tried a little bit harder with that. I do find Aussies, like when I met them traveling, like great, but I do find within Australia a little more cliquey. So I felt it was kind of
absolutely agree. Yeah,
it was hard to kind of connect. I met Lily, and Lily I knew through other expats, and she's been great. One of my best friends, freaking love her. She's Aussie, but her partner's American as well. But I met her, and I was like, yes, like finally an Aussie friend. She's just so great. But yeah, it was just really hard to kind of connect with other Australians, because I think they have their friends growing up, and they're happy with that group. Like they have their friend group. They sometimes have really large friend groups, and they're like, these are cool. We need no more friends.
Lily, we're at capacity. Thank you.
Yeah. Lily was great, because Lily actually did exchange in the U.S., and that's where she met her partner.
Oh, cute.
And so I think Lily was also in like, coming back to Australia, was also looking for other friends as well. Because she's kind of like branched out a little bit of she has like her friends from growing up, but you know what I'm saying? She's kind of like branched out and is like happy and accepting to meet other people. And she made other really good friends in the US, and that's how our group kind of formed. But yeah, and then I met Ri'chard through another friend who's Canadian.
Oh yeah.
Over the pandemic for her like Zoom birthday.
Oh my god, that was
we were one of the last people to disconnect from this call that was like on for hours. Like people show up at first and they're like, hey, happy birthday. And then like 15 minutes later have disconnected. But we were on the phone for hours.
Yeah, we talked for absolute ages. And it was Sarah's birthday. We talked forever. And it was like, hey, do you want to like be friends? We're like, yeah, let's be friends. And I think it was after one of we had 6 lockdowns for reference.
Sure did.
After lockdown 2 or 3, or I think it was maybe 3, you had like a cheese party in my neighborhood, and you like popped up. Like this girl's like, "Hey, are you home?" And like, "Yeah, why?" She just showed up to our house. She's like,
with cheese?
No, I kid you not. I was going to milk the cow in Carlton, and I'm messaging him on the tram, and I'm like, "I'm going to cheese around your house." I was like, "Are you home? Can we meet?" On the way, I was like, "Last minute invite to your place," and you guys said yes.
My fiance at the time, we were just like hanging out at the house, and Kristin messaged me like, "Hey, Kristen's coming over. You cool with that?" I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right, cool. Yeah, come over." And then she just showed up, and then ever since then, we started hanging out more frequently and more often. And then when the black signal went out to get everyone together for the first Black History Month, Kristin was like, "Oh, I've got all these friends," and it's like, "I'm with this person." Everyone just invited 1 or 2 people, and yeah, that was.
And I think I met Nicole like right before we had the Black History Month.
Right before, I think
activity.
It may have been right before, a week or so maybe.
Yeah, and then I was like, "Hey, lovely to meet you. We're doing this Black History Month thing. Do you want to come?"
Gosh, and I was so thankful for that, because up until that point, I have been, a lonely island of a person. Because I find it the same way. I feel like Australians, very, very lovely people, but I feel like some of the connections I was making were very surface level, and it never went any deeper than going out and having a drink. I remember one time I asked someone, like somebody I was friends with at the time, and I was just like, "Hey girl, how are you going? Like, how are you?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "I'm asking how you are." She's like, "Why would you ask me that?" And I'm like, "Okay, you know what? That's
Your accent's on par.
I think there's going to be, we're going to find an excuse for Nicole to do the accent at any point.
Every single time. Yeah, well, thanks for answering that question. So what was your favorite thing about living in Australia?
So my favorite thing about Australia, I think it's the relaxedness of the culture. Like,
Totally.
It's also the labor laws, weirdly enough, but I think it's just that, like, they aren't as workaholics as, like, Americans are.
Absolutely.
And I think that, like, they do have really solid labor laws in terms of, like, they want you to have that work-life balance. They're like, "Oh, you work full-time? Okay, cool. Everyone gets a month off, at least, minimum." It's, "Oh, the work week's only 37 hours. And then if you work more, you get paid a lot more." But then jobs are like, "No, actually, please go home." Americans are like, "Please work 80 hours a week and still get paid the same salary you're supposed to be getting paid for 40 hours a week." And now you're just getting paying you're working double to get paid the same. Whereas I think that Australians really do appreciate that balance, and they definitely work to live, but they don't live to work. I guess
that's my favorite
thing.
phrase.
And just beach life.
But so you also like the beaches, but you lived in Melbourne. Well, I guess you went back and forth between Sydney and Melbourne, so that would make sense.
I was out here living my best Queensland beach life.
Oh, that's right. Okay, because just to catch everybody up, when we entered into our either second or third lockdown in 2021 here in Melbourne, and if you hadn't been following the news, Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world at that point in time, trying to protect everybody from the spread of the virus. But Kristin was like, as soon as they announced that they were going into lockdown, you made your escape to Queensland?
This woman just hopped on the plane.
It was actually, I bought the ticket the day before because Melbourne had 3 cases. They had 3. And I was like, they're going to lock us down. So I bought a ticket. And then my ticket was at 8 p.m. and then announced lockdown 5 p.m. the same day.
Oh my
and
God.
I think lockdown started
in Queensland.
As well.
Oh my God. You're like, "Oh no, here I am." Totally by accident.
The funny thing is, I loved my job. My job was great. And I emailed my boss. This was on Thursday. So I emailed my boss Friday, "Hey, by the way, I'm going to be working from Queensland for the indefinite future."
Yeah, it was indefinite because you tried to invite us to your birthday party, and we're like, "Is Kristin going to be down here for her own birthday party?" Because that was the old person party. Yeah, you're like, "Oh, hey guys, my birthday's coming up, or we'll get all these costumes ready." And I was texting Nicole. I'm like, "Kristin's still in Queensland. I don't know that she's going to be down here for a party. For your birthday party, when did you get here versus the date of the party itself? What was that window? Because I swear it was days."
I also my birthday's in October. I planned a late November birthday party for the past. I was not planning on coming back. I probably got back a week before, maybe a week and a half before the party.
Mm-hmm.
I bought my outfit in Queensland.
I know, that's right. That was honestly, what a great theme. Kristin's birthday party theme was we all dressed like old people, and I loved it. I had a full character put together. Hattie Mae.
Hattie the harlot.
Hattie the harlot. Did. She was a little skank.
Ri'chard had a character too.
Yeah.
She was a preacher's wife.
Black Francis.
Black Francis. Won Best Grandpa, by the way, just for the record. I won Best Grandpa.
You did win Best Grandpa.
You did.
I mean, to be honest, I knew you were going to win before you won, but...
Correct, because Ri'chard wins every contest that he enters. I don't think I've ever seen him take an L. I'm being dead serious. The track record is unbelievable.
True. If it's a costume thing, I want to go in. I'm going to be dressed for. I'm going to put in a character.
Correct.
Black Francis had a walk. He had a limp. Someone tried to trip him.
Well, I just want to say, if you ever see Ri'chard with a cane, my birthday was the origin of that cane.
Yes, that cane has made.
He bought that cane knowing he was going to use it in multiple events.
Oh, like you can't buy a prop if it's going to be a one-off. You got to rent it.
Correct.
Like everything I buy is versatile. Got to use it again.
Without a doubt.
Speaking of that party, there's a particular instance where something happened, and I just want to clarify. Nicole, do you consider yourself a good friend?
I'm a very, very good friend. Oh, I understand.
Yes, I just want to ask for the record if you consider yourself a good friend before I tell the story.
I'm a fantastic friend, yeah.
Okay, well, at Kristin's birthday party, we were like, the awards had happened, and like there were cups, like, oh, we can do beer pong. So we wanted to go to the grocery store. Our friend Rock, Nicole and I, we went to go have a little bit of a walk to go to the grocery store. And we're dressed as old people, obviously. And everyone's looking at us because, one, 3 black people in one place is not that common in Melbourne. But also we were dressed like old people. So we were walking, we were dancing, we were playing music.
Yes.
Rock was guiding us because he said he saw where the grocery store was.
Yes.
He did not. He did not know where that grocery store was. We were lost on the street. We were like, oh, maybe it's this way. We turned down the street, and were you playing the music? Or?
I was playing a little bit of some, because Mercy by Chloe Bailey had just come out. It was a bit of a jam.
Yeah.
Ooh, love her.
I know, same. Love her,
Absolutely
love her music. And yeah, that jam had just come out. So we were playing it on our phones because, we were in party mode on our way to buy ping pong balls from the grocery store.
Yes.
And Black Francis decided to delight us with a little bit of a dance solo on the sidewalk. And he places the cane out in front of him to give us a little, little drop, a little booty pop.
Yeah, a little booty pop, as you do.
And the cane betrayed him. And he went down.
Oh, yeah, Black Francis down. But the thing is...
Black Hawk down. He hit that pavement.
I hit that pavement hard, and I
like,
just rolled over. And Nicole and Rock are just laughing. And again, I'm laying on the ground just...
Where's your life alert?
Honestly, I didn't think I needed one because I was with 2 friends. But apparently, Nicole... needs to take a break, so I'm going to let her breathe. But I'm going to finish my story because I laid there on the ground be like... maybe I'll just die here. Maybe this is just the way it ends. And instead of helping me up, so Rock tried to help me up. Like so Nicole takes out her camera and just starts taking pictures of me.
As you do, as a friend does.
As a friend does. So Nicole is taking pictures of me on the ground. And you can see, in one of the pictures, you can see Rock's hand reaching out to help me. But she was just like getting angles and like she was like trying to pose, like take little selfies with it. And like also in this moment, I'm bleeding. By the way, like when I fell, like I scraped up my knee, so I'm bleeding through my pants, and Nicole is just
how didn't I know this?
Healing herself. I was bleeding when I came back.
He was because we ended up having to buy Band-Aids and ping pong balls for the group.
I don't even think we found the ping pong balls. We just went there and got Band-Aids and just
oh my god, and alcohol swabs. Yeah. And I personally listen. If you fall down,
Nicole will take pictures.
But I think that's the sign of a true friend.
Send me that photo later.
I will absolutely
I might repost
send you that.
that.
Absolutely. We might have to post it too so our listeners know, get the visual.
So I, for one, think a good friend would be like, oh no, are you hurt? Because we are in our 30s. If you fall, you may not pop back up like you
I mean, it was the way, it was like such a slow fall because the cane gave out. And you fell for 5 minutes.
No, it was like one of those slow motion falls. Like when you're
I would have abandoned that cane. That cane betrayed me. I betrayed it. It would have been the trash.
Exactly. It's the cane that wasn't a true friend.
Actually, no, it's the shoes. It was the shoes because I got those shoes at an op shop. And they were legit old man shoes, but they had no grip whatsoever.
Oh, no.
I know for a fact because I felt my feet give out because I was doing the thing, and I went boop, and I was going to do a little spin, and they said, nah.
Oh, no.
And then it gravity said, boop. In the arms
Speaking of op shop,
yeah.
I say op shop, I say May, and people here just don't understand me.
Oh yeah,
and I'm like, oh yeah, do you know the op shop?
Yeah, thrift stores.
And they're like, huh? And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
Salvos?
That's right. Yeah, the Salvos. They're like, what is that? Because it's got to be like,
which is short for Salvation Army.
Which is short for Salvation Army. And then just to let everybody know, op shop means like opportunity shop here, and it's essentially like the thrift shop where you can get like secondhand clothes for like a really discounted price. Oh no, the vernacular, the vocabulary has shifted.
Now you've learned.
I said mate to my friend, and she was like, please stop. Please stop.
I love that you're not doing that because you've seen your thing go above and beyond.
I'm trying to laugh away from the mic so I don't injure anybody's ears.
Like every single time we tell a story, Nicole, like she will like get a laughing fit, and you can see her number because she's on mic number 2, and it's red right now.
I know. I'm trying so hard to lean back. Oh, that's so funny.
It's like when you send a voice note, and it's like most people's kind of muted, and yours is just like really long lines up and down.
Correct.
Yep.
It's always in the red, always in the red. Do you still say keen? Do you say anything like that? What other?
Keen and reckon. I love a reckon. I say reckon a lot.
I love a reckon. Oh, you reckon?
It took me so long to say reckon. I was just like, oh, it just feels so country. Like I
totally get that.
It feels like, oh, you reckon?
Yeah, it's very hunky dory kind of. Yeah.
I forgot who it was. I told someone that Australians are British Texans, and they didn't like that. But I think I have the space to say that because I grew up in Texas.
That's actually dead accurate.
I've had to I have to actively think about this because so for the audience that doesn't know, I got a job with the U.S. government. I'm living in Mexico now, but I spent 8 months in the U.S. in training. Mm-hmm. And I'm actively trying to be Insecure when Molly kept being like, at my old job, this has happened. I'm trying to be like, yes. But I'm like, that person's like, oh yeah, well in Australia. And I'm like, no, Kristin, stop it. You're just being annoying. Stop comparing this shit to Australia. Stop being like, oh, well in Australia this. And I'm like, but then people would say something and I'm thinking it and I'm like, don't say it, Kristin. Oh, no. Don't say it. But I'm that person now that I'm like, oh, well, in Australia, this is how things work. It's way better. Oh, this is how healthcare is in Australia.
Yes.
This is how this happens. Oh, I could do my taxes in Australia because it's easy. In America, that shit's fucked up.
Listen, talk about what you know. Don't let them silence you, Kristin.
Well, that's
I'm silencing myself. I still want friends.
I need friends here. This is where I am now, so you have to adjust. But that's actually one of the questions I did want to ask you because obviously you were here for the better part of a decade, and then now that you're back in North America in general, how is that? Has it been good for you? Has it been an adjustment other than trying not to harp on how good Australia was? Again, as we said before in another episode, it's gonna be goods and bads. We obviously love it here. You would have stayed, but what was that transition going back to North American life, especially during that 8 months of training?
Well, thing one, I gained a good 40 pounds eating all the American food. Not even joking. I'm that's actually the amount of weight I gained. I was living my best food life here, eating everything without zero care in the world. And my body noticed. But it was good. You know what? The food was good. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to complain about that. No.
The food in America makes you fat, without a doubt.
It does, but it's delicious.
But it's really good.
But I don't know, I guess one thing that I do was just in general, just being so much closer to family, not having a 14 to 16 hour time difference between us. And my grandma's getting older. I went to her 93rd birthday and, hanging out with my parents and my uncles and stuff like that. It's been really good. And I think, while I loved Australia, I probably would have pushed harder if Australia was a little bit closer to the U.S. Mm-hmm. If you put Australia where Hawaii was, I probably would have found that man.
Totally. I absolutely get that. Yeah, I would say that's the con.
Yeah, it's just so far away. Just to get to the East Coast, it's the 15-hour flight to LA plus a layover plus another 6 hours to the East Coast.
Yeah.
That was kind of a struggle, and I had to come back for an emergency and. I couldn't get back in time, so I think that was probably one of the biggest disadvantages of Australia was just how far away it was.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
And then, just being back in America, it was just really nice. Yeah, the close with the family. It was also reconnecting with my friends that I had before and stuff like that. But then there is those little things in life that I remember having there that I'm like, damn, it was easier, I don't know. I just think that, in my opinion, while America has the American dream, I do think the American dream is a little bit more the Australian dream because they can achieve it easier.
Girl,
fully
correct.
agreed.
Absolutely.
So I was actually talking about this tonight. I'm at a dinner party, so I'm upstairs from my dinner party. But I was talking about how the minimum wage is $7.25 in the U.S. federally, but that hasn't changed since 2009. Whereas Australia had inflation, and they're like, "Yep, we should probably raise the minimum wage," and that was just like automatic. Literally, they didn't even talk about it. Like
Common
I think in America, things happen where they spend so much time arguing back and forth.
People are still suffering. Being
Or
broke
like I think the
happening.
prime minister just did it, and then I saw it on Instagram, and it was like minimum wage raised. No one talked about it; it just happened.
Yep.
So it's definitely a lot of differences. I will tell you another thing is Black people. I miss a lot of Black people. I went to London on a trip, and my ass in London was literally just staring at Black people just doing like normal things, like riding the metro.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What do you mean these kids are going to school? Like, look at all these Black children."
Be my friend.
And I'm over here staring because I just hadn't seen that many Black people on the train, because normally I'm the one Black person on the train.
Yeah.
And I would have calls with like my bank in America about some like banking issue, and I talked to this guy, and I just was like, "Sir, I have a quick question." I was like, "Are you Black?" And he goes, "Yes, ma'am, I am," because I heard it in his voice.
Yes. I know that's right.
And I was like, "I just had to ask you because of," and I told him, "I miss talking to Black people."
For real. For real.
So I think that's another thing too. While we did make our own little community, it was still like our own little community, and it wasn't a wider, like population-wide community, So we would hang out, but then we'd still be the only minorities in the whole restaurant,
Totally.
Where being from outside DC, you're going to see Black people around.
Yeah, correct. It's like you don't have to like venture out to find them. Like they're there, they're present. Like whereas here, you have to actively find Black people.
And then
and like from Melbourne, there's definitely areas where there's
Totally.
like more of a Black community or African community. You go to Footscray and you're like, okay, cool. Like Dandenong, okay, cool. But you definitely have to go out
to find each
It's not just every neighborhood.
Absolutely.
I missed the nod. I missed the Black nod because nobody does the Black nod anymore. I almost got in a fight doing the Black nod at an African.
There's no nod.
Yeah, because like the nod's like, hey, I see you in this white space, and you do the nod. It's like whether it's down, up, or like based on respect. Like if it's an older person, you're like, oh yeah, you do the down nod, like sir, ma'am, or whoever you are. But here, if you do the nod, I'm like, why are you nodding me? Like, do you want to fight?
People don't know.
Like,
they don't know about the nod.
Yeah, like the acknowledgement, like I see you, you see me, we see each other.
We see each other.
That acknowledgement nod. Yeah, some people, they don't do it. But me, I'm gonna look at you and I'm gonna smile. I'm gonna be like, you know what? I'm still just gonna smile at you because even if you don't smile back at me, I'm still just gonna give you
the smile, the high, just the acknowledgement.
The acknowledgement. Totally. And I guess that's just a cultural thing.
Absolutely.
That's just
a cultural thing.
Yeah.
And I guess with the Black community, people are coming from different African countries. So I guess it is different. But I think we do have our own solid Black American culture, So like I think like I can meet like somebody in DC or somebody in California and it's culturally the same. Whereas I think while there is the African diaspora, I can't even say the word, it's different because then you have people who like were born and raised in Australia or their families have come later, but one can be from Ethiopia and then one can be from Sudan and then one can be from South Africa, which are all three very different cultures.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. But still, we get to meet such lovely African people here. Such wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that you mentioned you're at a
Shout
dinner
out
party.
to my South Sudanese friends.
Did we do South Sudanese in the last shout out?
I don't think we did.
Well,
no, we should have.
South Sudanese.
The Sudanese,
a hardcore shout out.
Somalia, shout out to y'all. All of them. All of them.
I don't even think honestly, like it's shout out. You know what? Like I don't even think I've met anybody from South Sudan before. I get to Australia and they are great.
Oh, they're fabulous. They're fabulous. They're so hospitable, so lovely, so nice. It's just, can't say enough good
Waddle,
things.
love you.
Oh, Waddle, shout out to Waddle. That is my girl. I love her.
Waddle's amazing.
I love her.
Just put it out there.
Yeah.
I hope she listens later if she hears that shout out.
Oh, shout out to Waddle for real.
I'll just text her after. I'm like, what are you doing? You want to listen to this?
Yes.
But no, so obviously you're at a dinner party, so we don't want to hold you too long. But one of the things that like we've been asked repeatedly who our target audience is. And while I think that kind of ranges, I would love for it to be like, even if people are just considering living out here, giving them the pros and cons of doing it. But what would you say if you were going to give someone a tip who is maybe considering this? What would you say is your closing thing? Like one piece of advice you were to give someone?
Oh, that's actually a good question. I had to think a moment on that. Shout out to Melbourne. So go to Melbourne, not Sydney.
Step one, go to the best city.
I mean, it's Melbourne, not...
Correct.
What would you do with Sydney?
If you want, Brunswick's a great suburb to live in. No, but one. For real, just like give Australia a chance. It is a little bit different than America or other countries. This far, it does take a little bit, like I said earlier, to like meet people. But once you meet people, they're your people. You know, like
totally.
Everyone out there, especially the expat community, has just been really great and in the same kind of boat. So you can just really connect on that level and make really good friends. You know what? I was going to say that things were expensive there, like food and drink, but actually America with inflation, same prices. So like you're actually going to save money if you go to Australia. But yeah, I just definitely think that if you do make the move out there, so Ri'chard and I did this very differently. Actually, I'm not sure about you, Nicole, but I came out to Melbourne knowing I wanted to live in Melbourne. And it wasn't until the last couple of years I started traveling out to other states. But I do kind of wish, after talking to Ri'chard, that when I first got there, maybe lived in other cities to kind of see what I liked best. And I was always kind of jealous of like the people who were like traveling around, did the whole coast, like East Coast, the whole West Coast and all that. And I was like, no, I made a life in Melbourne and I've only been here in Tasmania, you know? But yeah, I definitely think that if you come out there, especially on a working holiday visa, maybe test the waters in other cities and see what you like best. Because I don't know, Ri'chard, like, did you like doing that way, or like what?
I loved doing it that way because whenever I thought it was just gonna be 1 year, I was like, oh, if this is gonna be 1 year, I'd rather be able to give the experience. Like, I checked out all or most of Australia, like the major cities, so I bounced each one, gave it a week or so, and I started in Melbourne, went to Sydney, Brisbane, Cairns, down to Adelaide, up to Alice Springs, over to Perth, got stuck there. That's a whole different story. But when I went to all those cities, I was like, Melbourne was the place for me. So when I came back with like this like fervor. I'm like, I want to be here. This is where I want to stay. So I worked harder to get jobs. The jobs that I worked were very odd and very far between. And it was just, I very much would recommend that as well. If you come here, check it out. Like if you're not coming here specifically for a job or a partner, see what's around because there's so many places. Melbourne may not be for you. It was for us.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll never know until you check it out. Absolutely.
I definitely feel like I just got lucky that the place that my partner's from is Melbourne. Because I know that if he would have been from the bush, something like that, out in the sticks,
it would have been a no for me.
Your girl would not have survived.
Your hand would be a little lighter.
Definitely. Definitely not. Well, Kristin, we have taken up so much more of your time than we had intended on, but it was so great talking to you.
It was so good talking to you guys.
I know we missed you so much.
I know. Come out to Mexico.
Yes,
I mean, like, again, if you're throwing out visas.
Not the visas. Not the visa.
You don't need a visa to come to Mexico. I'm throwing out visas for Mexicans to go to America.
Oh. Well, I take it back. So, when are we going? We'll have this chat offline.
Y'all get legit as Americans, you get 6 months in Mexico without a visa.
What?
So
I did not know that.
Let me
write that down.
That is so generous. I had no idea. No clue whatsoever.
Yeah. So I'm doing the visas the other way around.
Okay.
Wow.
But yeah, again, thank you so much.
Someone legit came up to me. They're like, I heard you're new. And I was like, yes, welcome.
Bienvenidos.
Estados Unidos.
Love it. I love you, Kristin. Thank you so much,
Love
babe.
you guys. All right, bye.
Bye, doll.
Obviously, we're really grateful that Kristin was able to take the time out and have the conversation with us. Because it was very limited with her time. One of the things I did want to circle back on was the visas. The visa conversation, because her story was expansive. Yeah. The reason I want to talk about Kristin's visas was because she's one of the ones that did more visas than anyone that I knew.
Any of them. She was collecting them like infinity stones.
Just full on.
All of them.
Thanos. But for me, personally, I came here on a working holiday visa as well. And when I heard about the farm work thing, I was like, I don't want to volunteer for slavery, personally. My ancestors said, nah. And I said, understood.
Manual labor? Not for me.
Not for me. Get somebody else to do it. But at that time, I'd met my ex at the time, and we had this kind of a whirlwind romance. And he's like, hey, I like you like me. Do we want to do this? Because I've got shit to do. And at that time, I was not going to do the farm work. I was going to go to New Zealand because that was another place that we have access to a working holiday visa. And it's like, yeah, let's do it. So I ended up doing the partner visa after that, which was like a 4-year process of waiting and all these extra things. But in between there, I went to New Zealand for a working holiday because Kristin did mention that her friends told her to go to Australia first and then New Zealand. Me personally, I probably wouldn't do it in that order, only because the cost of living is kind of swapped.
Oh, gotcha.
When I went to New Zealand, the cost of living is very similar, but the Australian dollar is slightly stronger. And the minimum wage is a little bit lower. So having gone from Australia, being used to a certain quality of life, I had to work a little bit longer, a little bit harder in New Zealand. So I didn't get to enjoy New Zealand like I would have liked to. It was beautiful. Gotcha. The people were lovely. But I found myself working 2 jobs hard to try to save up money just to come back here. So if I were to give advice to anyone trying to do the working holiday visa, if you're under 31, like I think you cannot be 31. I think you can sneak by at 30. I think it's, but you have to Google this. Like, fact check me. Happy to be wrong. It's been a year since I looked at it, but I would say do New Zealand first. It's beautiful. It's a nice starter place, and then go to Australia if you're young enough. Obviously, you don't have all the time in the world. Both of those have the same age cap, but that would be my suggestion mostly because they're both beautiful places, and if you only have this amount of time to take that break from your usual life, capitalize on it. Do you want to talk about your visa at all? Your visa experience, or not really?
I mean, sure. I guess I could talk about mine. Yeah, I guess mine isn't as adventurous as you guys because, like I had said before, that my partner is from here, so my sights were pretty clear on coming here. But I will say that I, too, bought a
working holiday visa.
Thank you. I bought a working holiday visa after Cheeto Voldemort got elected in the States. Quite literally, that day, the election results came in, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to stick around to see how bad things get, so I'm going to get out of here. So I ended up purchasing that visa exactly the next day, but then realized I'm not prepared to move to the other side of the world. So it took me, I think, 2 years to end up moving here. And I was like, because that was 2016, and then 2018, I was like, all right, we're able to make the move because things were getting crazier and crazier in the States. So I ended up entering on a tourist visa because, unfortunately, I had let my work holiday visa
expire. Yeah,
because I didn't enter and exit as many times as I could have on it. So essentially, they're like, well, you bought it and you wasted it, girl. We don't know what to tell you. You can't renew it. There's nothing else you could do. So I had to, when I moved here, I had to enter in on a tourist visa, which has quite a few limits to it. So we were like, all right, well, this isn't going to work for us, especially since I wanted to start working as soon as possible. So we ended up getting the de facto or the partnership visa.
Pretty early.
And we were really fortunate in the fact that we had been living together in New Jersey before that. So we had a bit of previous history. So it made it a lot easier for us to get the partnership visa. But man, that visa process, oh my God. It is just wild.
It's hoops.
Everything. It's birth certificates, passports, driver's licenses, okay, but then they're like, all right, well, we need to look at your Facebook messages between each other. How long of a time period was it that you guys were apart? We need to see your Instagram photos.
Yep.
We need to see if you got how many pictures y'all got together. We need to talk to your mama. We need her to sign an affidavit and say like whether this is real or not. We need you to go and get a police check.
Yep.
We need your blood type.
Yeah, health tests, all these things. And they were very serious about it. Did you use an agent? Because we used an agent.
Absolutely. We used an agent, and she was not very nice, but she got results. Yep. And I'm very thankful for her in that regard, because I think navigating it on our own, it would have just been chaos.
We're very much in the same thought. When I saw the process, I'm like, oh, I could do this. But I've also been very, I love to read the thing. Like, I love to do a little piece by myself. My ex was very anxious. And just for the peace of mind, like, it was like $4,000 for the agent and $8,000 for the visa.
Yeah.
But that extra $4,000 in the moment, it was like, oh, but at the end of it, I'm grateful because it was very much like a plug and play. Here's the information. They took it all and just did the thing.
Real talk. And thank goodness for them, because I don't think I would have been able to navigate it, because essentially, this is what happened to my friend. He's Australian. He moved to Canada. He's been living there for a couple of years and was reapplying for his visa. Thought he can do it on his own. Ended up filling out the paperwork, sent it off. They responded to him. They're like, you've made a mistake. This is not correct. You have one more chance to get this right, and we're kicking you out of the country. Because he had made a mistake on his visa application. And I was like, yeah, I can't work under conditions like that.
No, that would be so stressful. And if they say no, there's like a 5-year wait.
Correct.
Like, you can't. Just do it again. Like, oh, I'm sorry, teacher. Can I just amend my... No.
Yes.
Stupid.
Can I have extra credit? No. It's like the semester is over. You had your chance.
They're in cahoots because you mess up once and you just can't do it again. So they're like, oh, if you get these agents, if you spend more money, you can get it right. I swear they're in cahoots. But again, that's conspiracy theory. Wake it up, wake it up.
Wake it up, wake it up. It's fake. It's fake.
Now see.
Now see how they be. The visas.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. And I will say this probably may stem into a separate topic, but I think this can also integrate in what we're talking about now. I think there is a image that Americans have about Australia being like the scariest place on earth.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're terrified. They'll look at videos on like TikTok or Twitter or something, and they'll see something about like a snake eating a bird or something like that and being like, I'm never going to Australia. That looks terrible. That looks so type of crazy. And it's just like, it's actually really not that bad.
No, not
all
even
that crazy stuff doesn't really.
Clickbait. It's all clickbait.
Yeah.
1,000, like, no one's going to watch a video about how cool and calm and normal certain parts of life are because that's not entertaining. That's like, it's like the news when they report on all these terrible things happening. There's good stuff happening as well, but that's not exciting. Having lived here for 6 years, I've never seen any dangerous animals. I've seen a couple of live wild kangaroos like slightly outside the city, all these poisonous spiders and snakes and all these things. Like, it's not commonplace. It's not a very commonplace thing. So that's also another thing. Like, on a later date, we'll definitely talk about the things that are, like, go bump in the night or not exactly bump in the night because they don't. It is just another place. It has been
for real.
The concrete jungle has reached here well and truly a long time ago. So it's really not that kind of place.
For real. It's really not that kind of party. And so having that fear that everything here wants to kill you, it's really not like that at all. As a matter of fact, when I'm watching news stories about America, it's like there's way scarier things
trying to kill you
like,
and succeeding.
Actively.
And succeeding. But we don't actually, we're running out of time. So we can't.
That's all right. That's a different topic for a different day. But I just wanted to address that now that if you have a fear-based mindset around Australia because of the things that you've seen on social media and stuff, don't. Good. It's really chill.
The scariest thing for me would probably be the regret of not trying. So
true. Definitely. Because it's like, listen, we're here and then we're not. And you got to just capitalize on that. I would say the scariest thing here in Australia are just the mullets. That to me is the scariest thing is the fact that lots of people here have mullets. And
oh my God.
Listen, I'm shocked every time I see one. And I'm like, is it on purpose? It is very much on purpose.
And they think they look good. Like, they got that mullet for picture day. They're going on a hot date. They're going to propose to somebody with that mullet.
Joe Dirt realness.
Joe Dirt.
It is Joe Dirt realness, baby. They be rocking the hell out of these mullets.
I cannot with you.
Tell me I'm lying. Go ahead. Mute me if I'm lying.
Listen, I will always tell you if you're lying.
Mute me if I'm lying.
You see, and yet you're still talking because facts are facts.
Exactly. And probably because if you muted me, your mic would still pick me up.
No, my mic would absolutely still pick you up. We'd have to both stop talking because your voice just carries across the room. Shout out to the soundproofing of this room because I'm sure it'll be so loud in the library.
Shout out to it. They can't hear my cackling out in the hallway and everything. But big shout outs to State Library.
Victoria
for full government name.
We'll get it right.
We'll get it right.
We'll get it together one day.
I don't know what her middle name. Her middle name Library, first name State.
Yes.
Yeah. She cute. Well, listeners, we want to thank you so much for taking the time and spending it with us.
Yes, and I know you missed us terribly, so we're going to have to give you another break, but we will be back, and we will be talking more nonsense.
Thanks so much, guys. It's been great. Have a huge one.
If you're not choking, you're not doing it right.
Hey. See, that should have been the tagline.
I'm so done.
You have been listening to Melanated in Melbourne, an insightful look into an Australian lifestyle from the lens of two Black American besties. Make sure you follow us on social media at Melanated in Melbourne, on Instagram, Melanated in Melbourne, on TikTok, and if you would like to write us, you can reach out at melanatedinmelbourne@gmail.com.